Hello everyone and welcome to the Frontier. My name's CCP Bitboy and I'm about to be joined by CCP Tuxford, who's going to run through the Carbon engine and how we plan to open source it. Following that, there'll be a short Q&A with CCP Vertex. Thanks.
Hi. Like I said, I'm Christian, CCP Tuxford. Been with CCP for a long time. Worked as a game designer for EVE Online and technical director and everything in between. Currently the technical director for platform, at least for this talk.
Could you speak louder? I'm having trouble hearing you. I'm like right here.
Yeah, okay. Hang on. Is this better?
Yes.
Okay? Yeah, great. Okay. So about a year ago, in March last year, we announced that we were making the Carbon, our game engine, open source. And in general, this was pretty well received by the community, possibly too well. Some people were very, very excited about this. But the question is, like, why are we open sourcing the game engine now? And there's a lot of reasons why you would want to open source something. It gives you greater transparency, which brings better trust between the users of the software and developer of the software. There's security as well. In some ways, it can help you with hiring. People know more what they're getting into, and people want to contribute to open source software. You can also get a little bit of like community engagement where people contribute back to it, like creating this virtuous cycle of open source. The thing about this though is none of this has any sort of like measurable ROI when you start doing it. So there's nothing you can say like, if I open source, I will get this thing out of it. And honestly, since we started this, I've struggled with creating presentation, explaining why we're doing it. But the reality is it's a little bit of a faith. It just aligns with the values of CCP. And if you think about it, it aligns with the way we've been developing our games. We have always brought in the community to help us, guide us, and work with us creating the games. And I even have an email from 2006 from Hilmar, our CEO, talking about wanting to open source something. Myself, I've always liked open source ever since I was in university 20 years ago, working a lot on Linux systems. And at that time, Linux was kind of like synonymous with open source. Right now, it's more general, like a lot of Windows applications are open source at the moment. So you can imagine after 20 years working on EVE Online, people are telling me we want to make the game engine I've been working on for 20 years public. And my immediate reaction is like, no, pass. And I started exploring a little bit for myself. Those that know me to be exceptionally emotionally mature person. So I started exploring why do I have this feeling. So instead of asking why are we open sourcing Carbon, I thought about all the reasons why, like my gut reaction was, let's not do it. So first of all, like the immediate rejection is that our code is not a high enough quality. Is there any, like, is everybody game developer or software developer here? How many? Yeah, a lot of. Do you consider your code base to be a good enough quality you want to showcase it to the world? No? No. We do that as well. We talk ourselves down a lot. But when you think about it, we've released EVE Online 22 years ago, something like that. The code base is more than 25 years old, and we're still churning out releases twice a year, and we could do it more often. That isn't really a hallmark of a bad code base, like the fact that you can change it and extend it and modify it so quickly. So part of it is your code base is probably better than you think it is. It's just some weird imposter syndrome that we all have. And even if it is so bad, is it so bad that making it open source would push us to raise the quality and hold ourselves accountable to a higher standard? I don't think so. So that's not really a good reason not to open source stuff. Our code might have vulnerabilities. Game engine code is relatively unlikely that we have any kind of vulnerabilities like that. But the thing is, it won't get any more secure by hiding it away. you will always lose to an attacker that's searching for a vulnerability than you trying to, hoping that nobody notices it. So exposing them, getting more eyes on it is always better. Our code is badly documented and/or intuitive. At CCP, we've always relied a lot on kind of tribal knowledge. There's always a developer right next to you that knows anything. This became a little bit problematic during COVID times. That's when we moved to a more distributed world forcefully. That's when it becomes kind of like you need more documentation. We also share code with external partners and stuff like that. But even inside the office, what happens is you get a very unbalanced knowledge base. People will know things because they work next to this person rather than understanding the code base and how it works together. So again, it's not worse that you are improving the documentation in general.
So pause code will finally be documented?
No. This one is, nobody would want to use it. I think that, like, if you worked on Evil Lion in particular for a long time, you'll realize that people always find new and innovative ways of using our systems in ways we didn't even imagine. So why should the code be any different? People may find use cases for it that we didn't find. And the fact that we wrote this code because we needed that code may mean somebody else needed it. My point being is that we shouldn't assume nobody will use it and just leave it open. And if somebody can use it, somebody can extend it, somebody can make it better, that's just better. And finally, people might be mean to me on the internet, and that's fair enough. Like, people can be mean on the internet. We can hide submissions if we want to, but overall, there are more good people than bad people, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. So once I ran through all of my own kind of reasons for why we shouldn't be open sourcing it, I realized it's only pushing me to practices that I should be doing anyway if we aren't already doing them. So what are we open sourcing? We're open sourcing the game engine, obviously. Now, as luck would have it, both Frontier and Eve are monolithic applications. However, the game engine is mostly pretty modular. It's all loosely coupled libraries that connect together. And this is great for open sourcing because we can do this in a very iterative manner and do one library at a time as such. Our goal, like our first stretch goal, is Trinity, but it doesn't really make sense to open source Trinity and then have closed source internal libraries it depends on. So as we go towards the path of Trinity, we'll be open sourcing a lot of the other libraries as well. We're open sourcing all of our tools as well. Carbon editor being the most prominent of it, Graphite we call it. That one is a little bit more difficult because it basically depends on the project. You're always running the editor in the context of the game projects themselves. So we need to invert that dependency so the projects become more of a pluginable features to the editor. Now, we've talked about this internally a lot, and overall we consider it a good thing because it's already a little bit difficult trying to distribute the game between the two projects, and this would allow us to develop more in isolation and work a little bit faster. So where are we now? We haven't open sourced a lot since this year ago. A lot of decisions being made. Simple decisions, well, relatively simple decisions. What license? And in general, we're going for the MIT license. Do we want to give the full history? Like, we can't really give the full history because the migration from Perforce, our version control system, to Git, we never really took the whole history of it. In general, we want to give as much context as we possibly can. Do we develop against the open repository? Yes, we will develop against the open repository. And then we had lots of legal help. I don't know how many have dived into the world of legal and software patents and all that jazz. It's just very complex. Now, the first thing, we open sourced the spatial audio object clustering. It's a plugin for Wise, the audio engine we have. We open sourced that first in June. Technically not part of the game engine as such, but it was a good test for us to try to develop in an open source manner. Just this week, we open sourced the Carbon scheduler. There was an excellent talk before by CCP Cookies and CCP Tobins. Got nailed it. But the thing is that both of those projects wouldn't have been possible unless you changed the kind of the culture into a more open source culture. Because as technical director, I can poke teams repeatedly by saying like, remember to open source, remember to open source. But it isn't really, I didn't have to do this with this project. The developers themselves decided that this made sense to be developed in a way that we can open source it quickly. Now I'd like to invite CCP Vertex on stage with me, and we can answer questions.
Any questions?
Do you need to sit down?
Oh, sorry, can you jump in?
Do you plan on accepting any contributions back from the public?
It's a good question. And I've thought a lot about it, and I think the answer is always yes. Because like, if there's a good enough contribution, you're not going to say, no, on principle, we're not accepting it. So, but we are also mindful of like the capabilities of the team. I consider the team to be excellent developers. I don't want to transform them into code review people, because I truly think they are the best capable of developing this engine. But yeah, it will be open to an extent. Yep.
That's what the scheduler guy said too, because I asked that question in the scheduler one.
Yep. We've talked. Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that people are fearful about in open source is like, I'm not gonna be a developer and constantly bombarded with. When I've talked to other people that are in kind of the open source space, nobody is really complaining about being drowned in pull requests. That's not really how it works. That's a bit of a success problem, I guess. Yep.
Simple question I usually ask. What problem are you solving by open sourcing the libraries?
Yeah, like I said, it's not necessarily about problem solving. It's more about belief. Why do we feel it's better to develop in the open or not? One of them is the longevity of the projects. If you think about projects like even Quake, which is how many olds now? How old is Quake at the moment? 90 something? Yeah, more than 30 years old. It has a new like RTX version from NVIDIA. It's actually a few years old now, and that only happens because it's open source. That's what people tested it against. And in general, we think that software thrives more in the open than it does behind closed doors. Does that answer it though?
So one of the big risks you open yourself up to when open sourcing legal risks is essentially the accidental or mostly accidental use of either copyrighted software from somewhere else, cut and paste from the internet, or the accidental a violation of patents that you didn't even know about? How has that been thought through in terms of the legal risks?
Do you want to take that or? Sure. So we just kind of acknowledge the risk. We know our code base relatively well. We don't consider them to be, but there are also libraries we are exchanging for open source alternatives. Yeah, one of them being Tracy. Yeah, we replaced telemetry. It's Epic-owned closed source solution with Tracy, which is an open source solution. So it's about going through all of that. Obviously, like there's always the risk that somewhere there is some patented code that nobody knows about, some developer kind of lifted from somewhere. But I guess it's just a risk we are willing to accept.
Yeah, I think we would also say that, there's a 20 plus years of repositories that we need to take open source, and we're taking our time with it. Learning as we go. I mean, some of the great questions we're getting about, are you going to take pull requests? We haven't done that before. So we're taking our time, making sure everything is documented, going through the code, learning about this, and also trying to see what is the interest in the community to contribute, and where do we want to then focus our efforts on? Because, one of the biggest things that CCP and Eve, as it's well known for, is the engagement with the community. We just haven't established what is our working process with the community when it comes to contributing into our new repositories.
If we move forward like 5 or 10 years into the future, do you envisage people running their own Eve servers? Kind of like if I wanted to have my own star system running on my laptop at home, connected to Eve Universe, something like this? People can jump in on my laptop and fight, something like this.
It's an interesting thought. Like it wouldn't really surprise me, but there's a bit more. So what we are open sourcing is the engine. It's the low-level rendering capabilities and all of that. We aren't really it's not up to at least us to open source the game code itself. Although it's Python, so it's hardly well hidden. So.
Is Dogma part of the Destiny, or is it separate?
Sorry, is
Dogma the engine? Is it part of the Destiny, or is it separate?
It is separate, but it really shouldn't be. So it was. I can talk a lot about Dogma. We can probably take the rest of the time talking about Dogma.
What crawl are you going on?
Sorry.
What crawl are you going on?
No. So it really should be, for those that don't know, Dogma is like the rules engine or the attribute modification system of EVE Online and Frontier. It really should be, but it's all written in Python. When we extracted the engine to create, or extracted the code to create the Carbon engine, we really kind of limited ourselves with the C++ code and a wrapper of Python code in it. Yeah, but there's no real reason why Dogma should be written in Python and that it shouldn't be part of the engine. It's a very much like an engine-like thing that we want to do. And I truly believe it's, in order to improve it, it's best that it belongs with the engine. Yeah, Tom.
Hello, I was just poking around and I noticed that I already knew that there were other projects at CCP that had been open sourced. You've got stuff cramped all over the place. Are you going to unify this also? The project, you were talking about the spatial one and schedule, they're all in one place, but Loglight and Jabber related stuff, that was somewhere else. The GitHub for issues for ESI, which was ignored for some period of time, but we're not going to talk about that, was somewhere else. Are we going to unify all this? Because otherwise it also makes it very difficult for people to find this stuff.
Yes, is the
yeah.
short answer, yes. It has come up in conversations very recently, and we're starting to build a plan for combining everything, and also then how do we engage with the community as well, Discord servers, etc.
Okay.
No further questions?
No further question. Okay. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, guys.
CCP Vexor and CCP Tuxford, everyone. Now, don't go too far. We've got a great presentation coming up at 2 o'clock with CCP Wizard, one of our astrophysicists on the team, who'll be going into the digital physics of the universe. So see you there.